I didn't sign up for this. That was it, 5 words. Sitting there under a screenshot of our bank balance, 0.0. No explanation, no warning. Just a message and proof that Vanessa had drained everything we'd saved over the last 5 years. 38. $1,000 gone. My name is Logan, 32, head mechanic at Wilson's Auto in Spokane. That text came 4 hours after I sat across from a doctor in a small beige room, listening to him say, Stage 2 lymphoma. Treatable. Serious, but not a death sentence. Yet still enough to split my life in 2, before and after. I'd called Vanessa from the parking lot. Told her I needed to talk. She said she had errands, couldn't meet right away, said she'd be home later. She wasn't. When I walked in, half the closet was empty. Her suitcase was gone. Our wedding photo was missing from the nightstand. Then came the text. I stared at it for a long minute. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed 2 words. Take care. Then I put the phone down. I didn't throw anything. Didn't scream or cry. I walked out to the back deck, opened a beer, and sat in the chair I'd refinished last summer. The same one Vanessa said made the place feel like a real home. The sun was dipping behind the tree line, gold bleeding into purple, the air still, warm from the day. I watched it in silence. It wasn't the cancer that broke me. Not really. That I could face doctors, chemo, the fight, but this text. It cracked something deeper, something I didn't know had a name. Tim, my neighbor, noticed me sitting out there. He walked over to the fence. Everything all right? Saw Vanessa peel out earlier. I didn't look at him. Got some health news. She didn't take it well? I shook my head once. Tim nodded. Didn't push. Let me know if you need anything. Lisa makes a mean casserole. Appreciate it, I said. And just like that, he left me to the silence again. The beer was warm by the time I finished it. I sat there until the stars came out, wondering when everything I thought was solid started slipping through my hands. I wasn't raised to depend on luck. My mom used to say, hope for the best but plan for the worst. And when you grow up watching her stretch a teacher's salary across 2 kids and a mortgage, you learn to listen. After my dad passed, she taught me everything that stuck. How to cook a meal that could last 3 days, how to check your oil, and how to fix your own problems before you ask anyone else to. She never said it outright, but the message was clear. No one's coming to save you. I started working at Wilson's Auto the summer after high school. Paid in cash at first, oil changes, tire rotations, sweeping floors. I worked my way up, learned the trade, earned my certifications. By 29, I was head mechanic, managing a team of guys who respected what I knew because they saw me earn it. My job wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. It was steady. Vanessa never quite understood that. She came from comfort, private, school, family vacations, new cars every few years. Her dad was a corporate attorney who looked at me like I was a phase she'd outgrow. Maybe I was, but I loved her. And when we got married, I wanted to build a life where she'd never have to worry, so I worked weekends, skipped the new truck, fixed up the house myself, put every bonus check into savings, built something real, and I protected it too. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was years of watching people's cars break down because they skipped one too many oil changes. But about a month before my diagnosis, I'd already started shifting things. Not because I saw this coming, just because something didn't feel right. I'd opened a secondary account in my name only, moved the title paperwork for the '69 Mustang, my grandfather's old car, into a file I hadn't yet submitted to the DMV. Started drafting an updated will with my Uncle Brian, who just retired from estate planning. It wasn't a plan for betrayal. It was just a backup. So when Vanessa vanished with our savings and sent a text like I was a burden, not a husband, I didn't panic, didn't break. I already had a foundation she didn't know about, and that changed everything. We met at Drew's wedding, me in a borrowed suit, her in a navy dress that fit like it was made for her. Vanessa was sharp, magnetic, the kind of woman who walked into a room and shifted its center of gravity. She told me she was a paralegal, Just made partner track at a firm downtown. Said she liked guys who worked with their hands. Said there was something real about grease under the nails. 6 months later, we were splitting rent. By the end of the year, we were married. The first few years were solid. We were the kind of couple people called balanced. I did late-night oil changes and home renovations. She managed contracts and court filings. On weekends, I'd repaint cabinets while she scrolled through Pinterest for backsplash ideas. She'd show off our progress online, calling us Team V&L. Her parents even smiled politely when we invited them over, though her dad never stopped referring to me as the mechanic. Still, I believed in us. We were building something, a life, a home. But over time, things shifted, slowly, subtly. She started bringing up Seattle, mentioning firms with real opportunities. She made comments about her college roommate's husband who just made partner and how they were building a second home on the Sound. Then came the quiet critiques. The questions disguised as curiosity. Do you ever think about doing something bigger? Isn't it frustrating being stuck under a car all day? I just want us to live up to our potential, you know. I'd nod. Let the words hang. I wasn't defensive, just tired, and deep down I knew those weren't really questions. They were breadcrumbs leading somewhere I wasn't invited. Still, I ignored them. Chalked it up to stress, restlessness, ambition. Everyone hits rough patches. I figured we'd work through. Then one night I found a business card in her purse, from a luxury apartment complex in Seattle, tucked neatly between a lip balm and her keycard. I didn't say anything. Didn't confront her. Instead, I called Brian, asked what it would take to update the will again. Something in me knew what was coming, even if I didn't want to admit it yet. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. I sat under fluorescent lights while the doctor paced through my charts, his words measured, rehearsed. Stage 2 lymphoma, treatable, but a long journey. I nodded, didn't ask many questions. My mind was already on Vanessa, how I'd tell her, what I'd say. Outside, the sky had clouded over, a soft gray blanket stretching across Spokane. I dialed her from the parking lot. She picked up on the third ring. "Can you come home?" I asked. My voice was steady, but something in me was already unraveling. "I have errands," she said. "I'll be back later." I stood by my truck for a long time after the call ended. People came and went, doors slammed, tires turned against wet pavement. I just stood there. By the time I got home, the silence hit first. Then the space, half the closet cleared out, drawers open like someone had been in a hurry. Her wedding dress was gone, her favorite boots. The photo from our wedding day that always sat on her nightstand had vanished without leaving a trace. Then my phone buzzed. It was a screenshot. Our joint savings account, balance 0. And below it, a message that read, "I didn't sign up for this." 5 words. That's all. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't throw anything. I just set the phone down on the kitchen counter, walked out the back door, and sat on the deck with a beer in my hand. The sun was setting through the trees, casting long golden lines across the lawn. I watched the light shift, the day end. Tim, from next door, walked over to the fence, concern stitched into the lines around his eyes. "Everything all right?" "Got some health news," I said. She didn't take it well. He nodded, the kind of nod that says, "I won't ask." That meant more than any sorry ever could. When he left, I sat there a while longer, not mourning her, not even really processing the diagnosis, just breathing, letting the silence wrap around me like armor. Because now, everything had changed. That evening, Tim showed up again, this time with a 6-pack and a look that said more than any words could. He didn't stay long, just handed it over and said, "Let me know if you need anything. Lisa makes a mean casserole." "Appreciate it," I told him, and I meant it. After he left, I went inside and pulled the old manila folder out from the drawer where I'd stashed it. It still had Uncle Brian's handwriting across the front. Logan, estate docs. He'd given it to me when my grandfather died, full of titles, deeds, power of attorney forms, stuff I hadn't wanted to think about at the time. Brian had always been the practical one in our family. Estate lawyer for 30 years before retiring, and even in retirement, he still liked organizing the chaos most people avoided. When I called him, he picked up on the first ring. "You all right?" he asked. No small talk. "Remember that conversation we had about keeping your affairs in order?" "Yeah. I need to make some changes." There was a pause on the line. "Vanessa?" "She's gone. Took the money. Left after I told her I was sick." Another pause, heavier this time. "All right, let's get to work." We talked for a half hour. Brian walked me through what I'd need. Updated wills, trust designations, asset protections. When we hung up, I felt clearer. Not lighter, but more focused. There was still something I could control. The doorbell rang just after sunset. On the front porch sat a casserole dish covered in foil, with a note taped to the top. "Made too much. Enjoy. Lisa." I knew it was a lie. They didn't make too much. They made it for me. I sat on the couch, dish warm on my lap, but I couldn't eat. My stomach twisted against itself, nausea already creeping from the chemo I hadn't even started. Still, I ran my fingers across the note again and again, like the paper itself held me together. There was something about that small act of kindness. Something honest. Pure. My wife had left. But my neighbors hadn't, and neither had I. Not yet. The morning after my second chemo session, I drove to Brian's house with a folder of printed bank records in my lap and a knot in my stomach that had nothing to do with the medication. I hadn't slept much. My head was pounding and every muscle ached from the inside out. But I needed answers more than I needed rest. Brian was already waiting on the porch when I pulled up, a mug of coffee in one hand and reading glasses in the other. We sat at his kitchen table, papers spread between us. He scanned the statements, his eyes narrowing. "She moved the money 40 minutes after you called her," he said, tapping the timestamp on the withdrawal. "Before she even knew the details?" "Just knew I was sick," I said quietly. "That was enough." He sat back in his chair, lips pressed thin. "That text she sent done about not signing up for this, you still have it?" I pulled out my phone and handed it to him. He read it twice, then nodded. "This isn't just cold, it's calculated, the timeline's damning. And combined with this text, we've got something solid. What can we do?" "We protect what's left," he said, already sorting through the folders. "Your grandfather's land, the Mustang title, any insurance or retirement accounts, everything you haven't touched yet. We separate and shield them." I nodded. "The land's not sold yet. The proceeds were going to a separate account." "Good. Let's make sure it stays that way." For the next 3 hours we worked. Brian drafted a new will, updated my power of attorney, began the paperwork to shift ownership structures on every asset we could still control. I signed forms with shaking hands, trying not to let the fatigue show. "You're doing the right thing," he said. "I don't want revenge," I told him. "I just want to be left standing at the end of this." Brian looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Then we make sure you do." When I left, the folder in my hands was thicker than when I arrived. It felt heavier, too, but in a different way. Not the weight of grief, the weight of purpose. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was preparing. The first clue came in a letter from her lawyer, a polite but pointed request for consideration of equity division regarding inherited property and transparency around any pending real estate transactions. It was vague, strategic, and, if you didn't know better, harmless. But I did know better. Vanessa was sniffing around the land sale. She'd taken our savings without hesitation, but now she wanted more. She thought I was too tired, too broke, too buried in chemo to notice the reach of her ambition. That was her first mistake. Brian and I went to work. I called the realtor handling my grandfather's land and asked her to pause the paperwork. Then deliberately, I mentioned I might explore liquidating some assets for medical expenses. I made sure the conversation could be overheard by the office receptionist, who also happened to know Vanessa's aunt. Next, I phoned my investment bank and asked about cashing out a small 401k. Just exploring options, I told them. I emphasized the word medical again, loud enough, sharp enough. Then we waited. 3 days later, a new letter arrived from Vanessa's lawyer. It now demanded a share of any proceeds from liquidated retirement holdings and marital real estate. The language had changed. Bolder, greedier. Her side had taken the bait. Brian chuckled when he read it. She thinks she's winning. Let her, I said. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I had been. The betrayal had already settled deep inside me, crystallized into something stronger than rage. I didn't want vengeance, I wanted boundaries. I wanted peace. But I also wanted her to feel what it meant to play dirty against someone who never stopped planning. I moved everything. Reopened accounts in new banks, changed the Mustang title, closed our shared safety deposit box and opened a new one under my name alone. Each move felt less like defense and more like direction. I'd spent my whole life building with my hands. Cars, relationships, a future. Vanessa thought walking away meant I'd crumble. But I knew something she didn't. Sometimes people who build also know how to disassemble. Quietly, precisely, piece by piece. She'd pulled the trigger. I'd just set the trap. We met in a glass-walled conference room on the 12th floor of a downtown office building. My lawyer, Catherine Chen, sat beside me, calm and deliberate. Brian was across from her, flipping through the file folder like he was reading a bedtime story. Vanessa entered with her father and some high-end divorce attorney whose tie probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked different, tanned, rested, as if she'd just come back from vacation rather than abandoning a sick husband. In the middle of chemo. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her lawyer started with that rehearsed tone of professional compromise. "We're here in good faith," he said, adjusting his glasses, "to discuss a fair and reasonable division of assets, including the home, the vehicle, and any remaining financial holdings." Catherine didn't blink. "We appreciate the courtesy. However, before we entertain any negotiation, I'd like to share our documentation." She slid a leather-bound file across the table. Inside, you'll find bank records showing the full withdrawal of the joint account within 40 minutes of Logan informing Vanessa of his cancer diagnosis. You'll also find a time-stamped text message where she says, and I quote, "I didn't sign up for this." Vanessa flinched. Her father's jaw tightened. "There's more," Catherine continued. Documentation from the bank confirming a $30,000 transfer to her parents, an attempt to alter joint credit accounts, an effort to access the safe deposit box without the second key, and a timeline that clearly shows all of these actions took place after she was informed of Logan's medical condition. Silence. Vanessa's attorney reached for the folder, flipped through it quickly, then slower as the color drained from his face. "Additionally," Catherine said almost gently, "we have a witness statement from Vanessa's cousin confirming that she discussed Logan's diagnosis with the family while framing herself as the victim, and medical records detailing his treatment schedule and associated expenses, which began 3 days after Vanessa left." Vanessa's voice cracked. "You've been spying on me?" "No," I said quietly. "Just documenting what you left behind." Her father tried to interject, but her lawyer raised a hand. "We need time to review this," he said, his voice now a register lower. "Take all the time you want," Catherine replied. "But know this. We're prepared to go to court." I sat back in my chair. For the first time since this all began, the silence was mine. The texts started the night before. Our response went out. New number, same tone. "Logan, this is cruel. I made a mistake, but this is vindictive. My parents can't return the money right now. You're trying to destroy me." I stared at it for a long while, not angry, not even surprised, just tired. That kind of tired that doesn't come from treatment or painkillers or low energy. It comes from carrying someone else's lies for too long. She still didn't get it. It wasn't about money anymore, or even about what she did to me. It was about the principle she thought she could sidestep. Actions have weight. They land somewhere. She texted again 2 hours later. "I know you're hurt, but we had a life together. Doesn't that mean anything?" I panicked, okay? I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought about how clear she must have been when she opened that new account, when she moved the money, when she deleted our wedding photo off the nightstand before I even walked through the door. Guilt often wears the mask of desperation, but guilt without accountability is just manipulation. Still, I said nothing. The next day, another number. Logan, ignoring me, won't fix this. I know you're going through stuff, but I have rights too. Going through stuff. That was how she reduced it. Chemo wasn't stuff. Being abandoned on diagnosis day wasn't stuff. Losing the woman I'd built a life with, not to tragedy. Time, but to cowardice, that wasn't stuff. I typed back 4 words. Actions have consequences. I hit send, then blocked the number. That was the last message she got from me. No explanations, no debates, no more chances to rewrite the narrative. She'd made her choices, and I was done carrying the weight of her shame. I leaned back on the couch, phone, resting face down on my chest, the soft hum of the fridge in the background, a glass of water at my side, a stack of court documents on the kitchen table. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like a quiet kind of applause. Justice didn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needed to be certain. The meeting room smelled like pine-scented cleaner and fresh printed paper. Cold air conditioning hummed against the late summer heat outside. Brian sat on one side of me, Catherine on the other. Calm, composed. Everything we had, neatly printed, tabbed, and ready. Vanessa walked in, flanked by her father, and a man in a gray suit who looked like he hadn't smiled since law school. She didn't meet my eyes. She looked thinner, like the stress was finally weighing on her. But her nails were manicured, hair freshly styled, like she was still trying to convince someone, maybe herself, that she had control of this. Catherine opened first. No pleasantries. We've outlined our terms clearly. You've seen the evidence, there will be no negotiation. Vanessa's lawyer tried to soften it, offering talk of a mutually beneficial resolution. Catherine didn't budge. Vanessa stayed, quiet. Her father leaned forward, trying to play the voice of reason. My daughter acted emotionally. She's admitted to that. Surely we don't need to ruin her future over a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Catherine slid the agreement across the table. The only misunderstanding was thinking there wouldn't be consequences. They read every line. You could see the fight drain out of them by the second page. Return of the $38,000. No claim to the house. No stake in the Mustang. No access to the land my grandfather left me. She'd assume her own legal costs. I wouldn't press criminal charges. Vanessa's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the pen. Her father whispered something. She ignored him. Then she signed. No apology. No tears. Just ink on paper. She pushed it back across the table and stood. Thank you for your time, Catherine said, cool and professional. I didn't say a word. As we left, Vanessa turned slightly, like she wanted to say something. But I kept walking. Not out of pride, not even anger. I just didn't need to hear it. We took the elevator down. I didn't look back. Outside, the sun was warm, but the breeze carried a chill. Autumn was coming. So was peace, and I was finally ready to let it in. 6 months after it all began, I sat in my oncologist's office while she delivered the words I hadn't dared hope for. Complete remission. I didn't say anything at first, just nodded, slowly staring at the chart in her hands like it was written in another language, because somehow, even though I'd fought every day for it, I hadn't prepared for what it would feel like to win. I walked out of that office into the sunlit parking lot, closed my eyes, and took the deepest breath I'd had in months. The air tasted like dust and distant pine, like freedom. The next day, I sold the house. I didn't need it anymore. Didn't want it. Every floorboard echoed with betrayal. Every room still smelled faintly like her perfume, no matter how many times I'd scrubbed it out. Letting it go felt like shutting a door on the chapter that nearly broke me. I used the money to buy a modest cabin outside Missoula. 2 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a detached garage big enough for my tools, and for the '69 Mustang I'd nearly given up on. I started working part-time at a custom auto shop. It was quiet, honest work. The kind of job where no one cared about your story, only whether you knew your way around an engine. Evenings were spent walking scout down to the creek behind the cabin, listening to the water rush over rocks. I cooked when I felt like it, ate when I was hungry, and slept without waking up to shadows. One morning, while tightening bolts under the hood of a client's GTO, my phone buzzed on the bench beside me. Unknown number. I wiped my hands and opened the message. I heard you're in remission. I'm glad. I know you won't believe this, but I think about you often. I made a terrible mistake. I was scared and selfish. I'm sorry, Logan, for everything. It was her. I read it again, slower this time. Then I set my tools down, leaned back, and thought about everything I'd been through, everything I'd rebuilt. Then I typed 4 words. I survived. Be well. I hit send, blocked the number, and slipped my phone into my back pocket. Then I turned back to the engine. There was still work to be done. The Mustang sat under a canvas cover behind the cabin, untouched for nearly a year. I'd told myself I'd restore it when I had the energy, when I had the time, when the dust of everything else had settled. But the truth was, I wasn't ready. Until now. One morning, I pulled off the cover and ran my hand along the curve of the fender. The paint was faded, the tires low, but it was still all there. Still mine, the same way I'd left it, the same way I was in a way, weathered, scarred, but not broken. I spent the next few weeks between hospital checkups and the shop, wrench in hand, sleeves rolled up. The smell of oil and steel felt like home in a way nothing else could. The quiet hum of an engine responding to new spark plugs. The metallic clink of socket wrenches hitting concrete. These were the sounds that reminded me I was still here, still building. I didn't touch the radio. Left it set to the same station it was tuned to the day Vanessa first rode in it with me. Some things didn't need changing. They just needed new context. The work was slow, but steady. I replaced the clutch, rewired the brake lights, repainted the body one panel at a time. There was no rush, only rhythm. And each bolt tightened, each part polished, was a step forward. People think healing comes all at once, like a light switch flipping from pain to peace. But the truth is, it comes in moments, small ones, like finishing a project you thought you'd given up on. Like starting the engine and hearing it roar, not just because it works, but because you made it work again. One afternoon, I pulled the Mustang out onto the dirt road that led down to the creek, let the engine idle while I leaned against the hood and looked out across the hills. A breeze stirred the tall grass. The sun glinted off the windshield, and for the first time I didn't feel haunted by the past. I felt proud of the path I'd taken through it. I didn't need revenge. I needed truth. I needed peace. And maybe I just needed to remember that some things, some people, can be rebuilt, stronger, smarter, wiser. I was one of them.